Welcome back to the A Life by Design podcast. I'm Marie-Nicole, for those of you who don't know me, and I'd like to share with you today about a topic that's really close to my own heart, and that is, how do you muster up the courage to keep going when it all feels like it's just too much? Now, for those of you who are listening on the audio version of the podcast, I just want you to know that I'm also doing a YouTube video version, which I've always have, but today's is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually in the studio shed and I'm going to be handcrafting while I'm doing today's episode. So if you want to see that, jump on over to the YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But if you're happy to keep listening on audio, do that too. And for those of you who are watching on the video, I hope you enjoy this new way that I've decided to try out this podcast episode. Like I said, today's topic is, how do we muster up the courage to keep going when it all feels like too much? Now, as humans, we have the ability to choose the changes that we can make to support us in thriving. Now, I have a dog, for example, the older of my two dogs, who has actually been through a lot of change. He was an only dog when we first got him, and I was working from home, and he spent all this time out here in the studio shed with me for the first year of his life. And so everywhere I went, he went. And then I opened up a commercial space and moved into town, and I did take him with me when I could, but not as much as he probably would have liked. And then COVID hit and everybody was home. And so he was used to being surrounded by people 24/7. Then towards the end of COVID, of course, everybody went back to work and he was here on his own. So we ended up getting him a puppy and another border collie, another big dog, and a companion. Now that was really beautiful for him, but the thing is not long after we got this puppy, then my marriage of 24 years ended. My eldest son was moving out of home because of the work he was doing, which meant he was working into all hours of the night, and he lived an hour and a half away from his workplace. Anyway, so everything was changing around this poor dog for the whole 10 years of his life. So he has a little bit of anxiety around change. So anytime we start packing to maybe go away for a weekend, he gets really anxious about being left behind. Or if we have people come and stay here, he gets really anxious about the change, the new people, what's going on now. So we've really had to work with him on ways of just staying calm and, it's okay. But as humans, we actually know that change is inevitable. Actually, it takes us a bit to learn that sometimes, I must say. But change is really the only thing that we can rely on. Even as a mother of two young men who, you go through your youth and you think, oh, I'd love to become a mum. And then you become a mum and it's a sudden change of all of the commitments that you once had that you could just freely engage in. You now have a little one to account for. And that's for the next 20 years, because I've got two children, they're 5.5 years apart, and my eldest son, until he was independent, I had two children to account for. So that is change. And now I'm at age 50 and I'm a single mum, and I have been for the last 3 years. I still have a teenager who lives with me full time and is dependent on me to drive him around for his work and his social engagements. And that is a change that I did not plan for. So the last 3 years has really taught me about adapting to change and also how to muster up the courage to keep going when it just all feels like too much, which I have had a lot. So that's why I really wanted to share this with you. And the learnings that I have taken from that has been to find ways to connect back to my inner essence, my power. Not only allow that to be my outer expression, but allow that to enable me to feel capable rather than feeling disempowered by the situation I find myself in. And one of the ways that I have found to be very helpful with this is to engage back in my handcrafting. Now, when I closed my commercial space, I have ended up taking on some freelance work to keep the income coming in, meet our basic needs, and as well as being able to thrive. That is the intention, right? That's the intention of life, is for us to thrive, not merely survive. And I have many times considered how I would go without my studio shed, because when I had my commercial space, my work was all integrated into that space. I had my workshop, the retail store, creative co-working space, other people working with me. That was the portal for my income. But then when I closed that and I moved back home and I took on these other freelance jobs, I really had to work out whether or not handcrafting was still a viable option in terms of an income stream. And having this double door shed dedicated space has been absolutely amazing. I love it. But now that we're selling the property, I've had to consider whether or not I would actually let go of having a maker's space altogether and just not even having making as a part of my income stream, but maybe just going back to it being a hobby and making small things rather than having industrial machines and workbenches that enable me to make things like my kangaroo fur vest and my leather bags and accessories that I require the industrial machine for. Now, a part of that process was actually going to learning to work with copper wire, because I thought maybe I would not make big things. I would just make little things for the pleasure of it. Because for me, handcrafting is a part of finding my center and grounding back to what it is I have control over, especially when I feel overwhelmed. And in recent weeks, I have really come to recognize that I can't let go of handcrafting altogether. That and not even as an income, I'll not let go of it as an income stream. It is a part of who I am. It's who I've been for the last, I started my artisanal business 17 years ago. I was a photographer before that, but handcrafting has been a part of my life's journey since I was a child. I've always made things. So having that as a part of my career was always my intention to have a creative career. And I think that that is not just me. I think we are all here to create. We are here to feel inspired and ignited and to use our passions to do what we're here to serve the collective with that is unique to us. And that's not necessarily fitting into a cookie cutter mold or following a job description laid out by somebody else. And so it is really important to me to sustain this. Now, the reason I bring this up is because one of the things that I have found when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I've got things that I need to do that are just draining, to be quite honest. Like a good example of this is I being self-employed, and the freelance work that I do means I'm a contractor, so I don't get paid unless I do the work. So that's pretty much like being self-employed anyway. But I needed to prepare my taxation documents. My accountant had me down to submit my 23-24 accounts tax documentation in May. So I had to get it done. The year before documentation was so complicated for me to do, because not only was it the first time in 25 years that I was doing it on my own, I've always been involved in finances and our account keeping. And I did that as a role as my first job leaving high school. So, I was an accounts clerk. So it's not that I can't do it. It just doesn't energize me at all. But that first year that I became single, after 25 years of sharing that responsibility with someone else, it was so complicated. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so energetically draining, but it needed to be done. So this last one, I was not avoiding it. I was doing it, but I just hadn't finalized it yet, because there, there's so much more involved in it than it's not just a simple put in a group certificate and a few numbers when you're self-employed. There's a lot more to it than that. And so the days that I had to work on that, I found one day I decided I would just get in, get it done, spend as much time as it took getting it done. And then I felt myself like just dragging through the process. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to take a week at this rate to get this done. And I really can't afford to spend a whole week just doing tax documentation and not doing work that pays the bills, right? So I decided, okay, I will stop doing this for now, come back to this in a couple of days, and I will move on to the other work that actually does pay the bills in the meantime. The next time I decided to do something that I do in other areas of my life, and that is do something that ignites the passion and inspiration in me before actually tackling what it is that drains my energy. And by doing that, we end up being filled up with energy and excitement. And then when we go to do the things that we're not so inspired by, we seem to have reserve. And I got through the preparation of the documentation so much faster that second round because I was energized by doing something that actually fuels my passions and aligns with my purpose than just trying to push myself to do what needed to be done. And so part of what I was doing, and I'll share in the video editing, I will actually have some footage of another session of making that I was doing. And I was actually working on some of these pieces here today that I'm making adjustments to. And they are feather and leather earrings that I have been making. And I have been making feather and leather earrings to sell for many years now, but working predominantly with rooster feathers. These are light Sussex rooster feathers, and they were from our poultry. So I like to call them happy birds because they were very happy birds. And the whole intention behind this, I'll tell you later. But so the rooster feathers I know how to work with well. I've worked with turkey, I've worked with eagle, peregrine falcon, kookaburra feathers. I've worked with a range of different feathers. But this particular feather set that I'm working with at the moment is a tawny frogmouth, and I have never worked with their feathers before. And I created these earrings. These were the first pair. And with a copper wire, because this is a part of my process of potentially letting go of my industrial machine and making handcrafted jewelry with intention and meaning behind it. And so I had made these feathers and made these earrings with these tawny frogmouth feathers, but not actually knowing the feathers and knowing just how frail their spines were, like how much they couldn't take things like the seat belt coming across and squashing the feather. So I reattached the feathers and I reinforced them with leather lacing behind the spine, which I have done for other feathers that have had frail spines. And so that's what I was doing while to energize myself before I went and did my tax documentation. And it really works. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is I want to encourage you to focus on what it is that inspires and ignites you before you try and tackle the things that you have to do. But set yourself a container. Don't just go, I'll just go and spend the whole day doing that instead. It's not about avoidance. It's actually about finding flow and energizing yourself to be able to keep going with what needs to be done. So that's my tip for you today on that kind of thing. Do what energizes, inspires you first before you engage in something that actually drains your energy. But things that take you out of your head. Now, for you, it might not be making, it might actually be going for a walk, going into nature. It might be exercising. I also like to do that. I like to get the energy flowing in my body before I tackle something that is not as uplifting. So I'm energized before I do the things that actually drain me. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of handcrafting or trying new projects that they take you out of your comfort zone. That's a really beautiful thing about working with a new material like the tawny frogmouth. I wanted to work with this nocturnal bird as a part of the fact that it is nocturnal. It looks into the shadow elements and what it is that we avoid doing sometimes, or not even avoid it. Sometimes we don't even realize we're avoiding it. It's just subconscious. It's just hidden. It's a shadow pattern that we haven't addressed. While I was actually working on these feathers and I was filming, I noticed in the background of my filming was this pile of things, and that was really bothering me in the clip. I was looking at it going, okay, what is it about that I haven't addressed yet? So a couple of days later, I decided to tackle that. I went over to that corner and I was like, right, I'm just going to sort through what's here that needs attending to. And what I discovered was what was in there were things that I had brought back from the shop when I closed the shop. Most of it wasn't even my stuff. It was just like things, remnants that had been left behind from other people that hadn't collected them. And even though I'd reached out to say I'm closing, and so I didn't know what to do with this because I didn't want to discard it, but I did want to actually clear my space because that kind of stagnant energy, which is the same process I've had to go through in the house with all of the changes taking place, is just moving things on that are just stagnant energy. That is another thing I want to inspire you to consider. Where are areas in your life that you've got stagnant energy, physically as well as emotionally, that you're just not addressing? So as I was working through this pile of stuff that just needed to be attended to, especially with the sale of this place and moving out of here, we're going to need to attend to it anyway. But by doing that, I physically opened up space and energetically and emotionally opened up space and felt lighter and brighter and more inspired to move forward with what it is that I actually desire to create for my life. And so that is why I think it's really important to look around and say, where are areas of my life that I'm not attending to, or things that I'm just kind of overlooking and just pushing off to the side till later, that if I actually attend to it, I'm going to open up space and energy for what I really want and to support me in thriving. And that's what has happened in that corner. And I'm really happy with that corner of the studio shed now, because it looks beautiful, and that is a part of what creates the magic of our existence, is to create space that actually aligns with what we desire to experience. Now, working with these tawny frogmouth feathers and being a nocturnal bird, looking at shadow patterns and the hidden, it was also a part of that was working with a new material like the copper wire, not really knowing how to work with it, but discovering also brings up a whole lot of thoughts around where I'm limited or where I'm incapable, or things that you struggle with to move through because you think, I don't have the actual skill set for that. And thoughts start to surface when you work with something new that you may not have addressed previously. And so that is another element to this that I want to encourage you to muster up that courage to keep going, to try new things. Actually put yourself in a position where you're trying something new, and you can develop the skill of self-empowerment by doing that. And by doing that through a project, there's nothing really attached to it that means that you're going to fail or get it wrong. It's just a project, and it could be something to do with cooking, it could be something to do with gardening or potted plants, or I don't know, whatever it is. It could be even writing your own poetry or your own short stories or making music, but just trying something new is a really good way to help you to muster up the courage to keep moving forward. And tuning into the thoughts that come through and seeing where your self-limiting beliefs could be holding you back without you even realizing it. So when I actually make something before I sell it, I like to prototype it, I like to test it, and I like to tweak it before I actually go and then put it out to the market to sell. And so that's what I've been doing with these tawny frogmouth feathers, is actually discovering how they work, how to work with them, how they handle what I'm using them for. And that's why I've been remaking and readjusting, because I would actually like to put these online to sell or take them to events to sell, because that's part of what I do, is to make intentionally crafted goods that add to the magic of our everyday living experience and help connect us back to our inner essence and to wild nature. That's a big part of what my artisanal work is about. It's connecting us back to that element of wild nature, which we are a part of, but our modern day lifestyle and lifestyle of convenience has disconnected us from that. So I'd just like to tell you about these earrings for a moment, because I think it's important for people to understand that this is not just about making stuff to sell. And have you ever considered that your jewelry or accessories can be medicinal, meaningful, magical? Those qualities can be a part of what you infuse your days with and what you wear. Accessories can actually support you in living in harmony, realizing your potential, staying true to your truth, and amplifying your gifts. They can also serve to remind you of what you are grateful for and what you have control over. Now, most of the jewelry that I wear and that I purchase has been designed and created with this very intention to support you in feeling empowered to move through your days with your inner essence as your outer expression. The elements of the pair that I am currently wearing, I said I have light Sussex feather earrings on, light Sussex rooster feathers, is to connect you back to that inner strength and resilience. The kangaroo leather lacing is to remind you to continue your journey forward, despite the challenges of your past. The repurposed beads are to inspire you to take the little gems of wisdom that have been gathered from the experiences of your past and carry them forward as you move into your next evolution of self. And the sterling silver hooks are for purity and protection, intuition, connection to the moon, and feminine energy. All of these elements that I use are ethically and sustainably sourced with respect for the earth and all inhabitants. So if you would like to purchase yourself a pair of these earrings, I will have links to the shop in the show notes where you can purchase. They're all one of a kind. They're a range of different feathers, leather and beads. But I just wanted to share that with you because these are the elements that help us connect back to our inner power, step into our truth. And it's the handcrafting, the trying new things, the clearing of space, the attending to things that we have potentially put off or just put blinkers on just to be able to get by because we're feeling a little overwhelmed by the reality of our changes or even just our existence. And sometimes it can be falling into patterns of the same, just doing the same over and over again because it's how it's always been. But then starting to recognize that we're not as energized in our life because we have fallen into a pattern of just doing the same rather than pushing ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone, trying something new, feeling inspired and ignited, because that is what we are here to experience as humans, is to feel all of the magic of life, the difficult times and the good times. It is the contrast that adds to the experience of our existence. So it's not about avoiding all of the hard stuff and only doing the good stuff. It's about combining it all together and seeing the magic of it all. So I hope that my episode today has inspired you to consider not only ways that you can help move yourself forward and energize yourself to continue forward, even when it all feels too much, by doing something small, something simple, taking on a new project. I would love to actually hear from you what it is that you like to do that energizes you, that may not have anything to do with earning your income, but it may just be something that fuels you enough to be able to tackle those things that you may have potentially put off or need to get done that just drain your energy. So be sure to leave a comment and let me know what you're working on, what projects you've got going, or what it is you want to try that you haven't yet tried. And also remember to consider the physical areas of your life that you could address to clear out stagnant energy. And you've probably heard me use this phrase before, as within, so without. That applies to our emotional and internal health and well-being, as well as our physical, external health and well-being. So our environment plays a really big part in what's representing what's going on inside and also affecting what's going on inside. So if you've got little pockets of your space that could do with some attention, take a little bit of time, clear it out, lighten your load, open up for new things to come in, and allow for space for to try new things and be inspired and ignited to keep moving forward and living your life by design. So until next week, I hope this inspires you to take action in creating that life that you desire. I look forward to hearing about the projects that you are working on or plan to work on that energize you and bring you back to your center and keep you connected to your power so that you can keep moving towards your dreams too. Thank you so much for staying all the way to the end of this episode. I hope it provided you with the insights and inspiration that you need right now on your quest of fostering thriving. If you are looking for a coach to support and guide you through your own unique journey of creating a life by design, reach out for a connection call. You'll find a link in the show notes. Also, please do pass this on to someone you think could get value out of it. And I'd really appreciate if you left a review for this podcast or comment on YouTube. I'd love to hear any insights or inspirations it activated in you. And I look forward to soaring alongside of you too.